Okay, right. I think we're on the way. So welcome everybody. It's lovely to see you, and lots of familiar faces, lots of friends there. So that's fantastic. Steve does send his apologies. He's got family matters that he has to see to today. So you're over to me for a change. So, as you know, this afternoon we've got Tiffany going to be talking to us about the Vaughan Williams Memorial website that there's all sorts of new things to learn and so many treasures in there that we need to know how to get there. So Tiffany, who is I'll get this right, Tiffany, the VWML Library and Archives Director. So she knows what she's talking about. And at the end of the meeting, there'll be time for some questions, and you might have specific ones you want to ask. Also, if you'd like to put questions in the chat, then we can relay those to Tiffany when we're ready to go. So the only other thing to talk about before we get going is the next meeting that's on the 10th of November, and that's another single speakers, but a single issue anyway. And it will be on the 10th of November, the North American Traditions Survey. So the people talking about that will be Norm Cohen, Mark Lowell, and John Schwab. And Martin has written helpfully for me that the project has recently issued a 15-volume set of CDs of traditional songs and music. So that's what they're going to be talking about. So put it in your diaries. I think that's going to be another really good meeting. So Tiffany, if you're about ready, we'll be very happy to hand it over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Sean. Yes, as Sean said, unfortunately, Steve can't be here. So there may well be things, and very detailed things you want to know relating to his indexes, which I can't answer. And I will say that now. I should be able to answer all questions about searching them, but if there's anything specifically relating to the nitty-gritty of the Roud Index, I may have to pass your questions on. Okay, I am going to share my screen. You bear with me a second. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, yep. We can.
Good. All right, I'm on the wrong slide. There we go.
Yeah.
So just having a look around the faces in the room, I think I've come across pretty much everybody before in some kind of guise. I definitely haven't met you all, but I definitely know most of the names. It's difficult to know when you do this kind of thing, A, how many people are going to turn up, and B, like how many of those people are going to know much about different things. So I wasn't really quite sure how back to basics to go in terms of, who would even know who I was and who knows a huge amount about the VWML. I think looking at everybody here that you probably already do know quite a bit about the VWML. But in case there's anybody who is a bit more of a beginner, I'm just going to give a quick whiz through, what we do and what we cover. So apologies if I'm teaching you to suck eggs slightly. I'm then going to go on to talk about the background of the new website and why we have a new website, what went into creating it, and how we made the decisions we made and why we made them. Because I think a lot of people don't really necessarily understand that background, and it might just help explain some of the, why some of the things are the way they are. So I'll go into that, and then I will show you how to search. I can't go into massive detail because I don't have a huge amount of time. I could talk for hours and hours and hours. There's an awful lot to get through. But then if you have got more advanced questions, then please ask me at the end and I will try my best to answer them. If you have anything extremely complicated that trips me up, I may ask you to email me so I have more time to think about it. So hopefully I should know what I'm talking about, he says. Okay, so the title of the talk is Heritage Secured, which is quite apposite actually, because this website has done nothing less than secure the heritage online of the VWML, and I will describe why as I go along. Yeah, as I said, just very quickly to explain the VWML and give you a view of the reading room if you haven't been there. I imagine some of the Americans and Canadians here may not have been there, but this is what our reading room looks like. It's looking very tidy in that picture. It's not always quite so tidy. There are usually some boxes lying around. There are usually piles of new journals all over the desks and that sort of thing. It's very much a working space. For those of you who don't know, it was originally the Cecil Sharp Library, based in Cecil Sharp House in London, opened when the house opened in 1930, and for the purpose of housing Sharp's personal book collection, which had, well, over 1,000 volumes. It has changed an awful lot since then and become England's national folk music and dance archive. And I've got a quote there from the Dictionary of English Folklore, which I discovered when I did a version of this talk in Whitby. It was actually written by Steve Roud, so I quoted it at him, and he told me that. So thank you very much to Steve. We cater for all kinds of people, so from mere enthusiasts for folk to like independent researchers, academics at universities, musicians of all different kinds, dancers of all different kinds. Students, both PhD students, master's students, undergraduates, an increasing number of undergraduates actually, which is quite encouraging. There are clearly young people interested in the sort of stuff we do, which is nice. And arts professionals from other sectors. We get people who are experts not just in folk, we get people who are sort of academics or students in art and history and English literature and a wide range of things that are kind of adjacent. So physically, we have the main library reading room that I've shown you. We also have archive stores, we have a sound archive, and we have quite a bit of material in offsite storage, which we can call back really quickly. So we're a lot bigger than what you can see on the surface. We're open to the public, no appointment necessary. Part of our mission really is to make all of this material available for free to everybody because it is everybody's heritage, and that's part of our philosophy. So we've got all kinds of different media, just a few of the things we have, just partly because it's rather a pretty slide and it's nice to have some pictures. So we've got sound recordings in all different formats. We've got collectors, notebooks, words and tunes notebooks, and photographs, broadsides, programs, journals, books, you name it, really, we have it. I'm just going to show you the VWML team, just in case. Well, I imagine that quite a lot of you probably don't know what we all look like, and it's quite nice to be able to realise that we're people. We're not just names behind an email. So this is the sort of actual salaried staff of the VWML. There's me, Malcolm Barr-Hamilton, I'm sure is known to many of you. He's the archivist, and he's holding in front of him some of the trousers from our archive there, which are rather fetching. Then we've got Nick and Alex, who are both librarians. Nick is part-time, Alex is full-time. They split most of the inquiries and so on between them and do most of the cataloguing. And Malcolm is part-time as well, but works very, very hard for those 2 days a week that he works. So that is what we look like. We also have quite a few volunteers. We have Martin Nail, who we pay to do some work for us as well. I think I saw him entering the waiting room. And yeah, we have quite a few volunteers who work with us too. So that's us. So we're focusing on the VWML online, obviously. I'm sure most people know of the full English. I'm just going to recap on that because it's actually extremely pertinent to why our website is the way it is and why it has many of the problems that it, problems and opportunities that it has. The Full English project was a National Heritage Lottery funded digitisation and education project led by EFTAS, which launched in 2014. And it brought together 19 manuscript collections of English folk material in order to create the largest, most comprehensive database of English folk songs, dances, tunes and customs in the world, with over 80,000 digitized items at that time, and it's always growing. So the project enabled these collections to be digitized, catalogued, indexed and hosted in a central archive, which is run on our website. but it brings in collections from other repositories as well. So we have on our catalogue not only things which are owned by us, which sit in our actual archive stores in paper, but we have things searchable and digitized, which belong to a lot of other repositories as well, which makes us sort of immediately quite different from a lot of other library catalogues. So yes, an unconventional catalogue. So there's a list there of some of the other repositories which hold some of the items which are on our catalogue. The British Library has various important things in their folk collection. They also house our wax cylinders, incidentally, but they've got various sound recordings. They've also got the most of the Vaughan Williams stuff. They've got a lot more than we have, which I'm incredibly jealous. I would very much like all of the notebooks, but I have been there to see them down in the vaults of the British Library, and sort of seen them untied from boxes and presented, which was a real treat to be able to hold those. We have some of his stuff, but they have the more exciting stuff, unfortunately. Clare College, Cambridge, very importantly, because they have some of the Cecil Sharp collection. Some of it was left to his alma mater when he died. We've also got things on our system from places abroad, like the Granger Museum in Melbourne, and from the Library of Congress Folklife Centre, and then various British, well, English and British archives. You can see there some of the ones we have. So those are archive collections, which make up an archive catalogue, but we also have indexes, which are all hosted on the same system. So an index is something different in essence from an archive. An index is, well, it's like the index to a book. It tells you what is there. What songs, for example, are out there in the world somewhere. It doesn't necessarily point to a document that we have in our library. So it's based on a very different premise. And most archives don't have to deal with both simultaneously on the same system. We also have the folk song subject index, which was something that we developed via one of our own projects some years back. And we have an interactive map as well, which is not something that most database providers have to come up with and make interact with their records. So we declared that we were going to develop a new website, and we heard this phrase a huge amount, both in writing and to our faces. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I largely agree with this, but the problem was that it actually was broken, which a lot of people didn't realise. So I've got a broken Easter egg here just to represent something broken. So why did we need this new catalogue? Well, as we've discussed, we have to have a highly bespoke catalogue because we are unique. So the old system was incredibly bespoke, to the point where it was built entirely with us in mind. Not based on any kind of existing structure. It had one developer who was a very excellent developer, but it was based on a very complicated code, so it could draw in all the unique things that we needed to do in one place. And when you've got one developer who understands how to use a very complicated code that he's written, but frankly, nobody else really understands how to use it. Certainly nobody in the VWML understands the code of the old website. So then it becomes rather unsustainable. Whenever anything went wrong, we were able to get a sticking plaster put on it, which is fine up to a point. But sometimes the sticking plasters stop sticking, and then what do you do? And this was becoming the case. Every time we tried to upload a new version of the indexes, which had to be ingested from separate software packages, it tended to make the system crash. If it did work, it would take like days sometimes. You'd need to leave it running overnight, and it had been running for hours and hours, and then it would crash, and then you had to start again. Even sometimes when you edited records, it would do something and suddenly nothing would work. So this was unsustainable. There came a point when we really had to stop uploading new versions of indexes at all. I know that towards the end of the life of the old website, we couldn't update a new version of the RAUD index for really quite a long time, which I know was very frustrating for a lot of people. And we kept having to apologize, and we kept feeling really bad that we had to keep apologizing because we couldn't really explain to people quite why, that this was why. Yes, I've just said that. But also, you know, we had new archive collections coming in all the time, which were accession, but then, you know, and could be catalogued, but then couldn't be uploaded onto the front end of the system, which is not great for anybody, really. It's very frustrating for us, and it means that people aren't getting the benefit of being able to see them. So yeah, we'd reached a technological impasse, basically. And there remained the kind of very real possibility that everything might crash if we tried to push our luck, and we might lose all our data, which obviously is the worst case scenario. But it was, you know, we were advised that we really should stop uploading things just in case this were to happen. And that would have been a complete disaster, obviously, and none of us wanted to preside over the destruction of all these archive records, because where on earth would we go from there? Also, just from the front end of the system's point of view, I'm sure you all noticed that it really wasn't the fastest website, basically because it was crunching such a huge amount of data every time anybody tried to search for anything on it. It just, yes, it wasn't robust enough to deal with that much data at once, particularly the map, which was fairly painful. Yeah, and also from an end user point of view, we had a system, because it was so bespoke, was very, very flexible, and was amazing for expert searchers who'd worked out how to manipulate it. But it was almost unusable for the novice. Believe me, if you sat down and you tried to explain to somebody how to search for something specific on our catalogue, unless they were very, very savvy with other archive catalogues and, you know, fairly experienced, it was very hard to make them understand how it worked. So yeah, because we had to get a new website, we saw this as a sort of as a challenge to try and create something that was both flexible enough for expert searchers and more usable for the novice, which is not easy, but that's what we aim to do. So basically, we were seeking the Holy Grail in trying to find a company that could do all of these things. And I've got a nice picture of, you know, one of the library staff painted by Rossetti on the right there, seeking the Holy Grail, as you can see. So what did we need? Well, very, very difficult. We needed a system that was supported by an established company, but which was also customizable enough. And very, very few established companies have systems which you can customize to the degree we needed. So we really thought, you know, how on earth are we going to make this work? We also needed a company willing to work closely with us over really quite a long time, because we knew that, that coming up with a system as we needed that replicated the old one as much as possible would take a long time to develop. We needed a company that could replicate all of the elements of the old system, such as the map, some kind of thesaurus tool, index records and catalogue records, all of which could interact with each other and cross-reference. We needed something robust that was not too slow, despite the amount of data that it was crunching. And we needed to be able to make immediate updates without a complicated ingestion process from other software. You know, the beauty of the new system that we have now is that we can catalogue something and it immediately appears on the public catalogue, which may sound like something you'd assume would happen anyway, but it didn't happen on the old one. We needed something that had a clear navigation and visual layout, very important for any catalogue. A better facility for help pages, because we really didn't have any meaningful help on the old system at all, which was a failing. We wanted something that did all that, but could also sit within the EFTA's website for a more seamless browsing experience across the different departments of EFTAS. The old VWML site was entirely separate from the EFTAS one because the catalogue's code was incompatible with the code of the other website, which made it a total nightmare for anybody trying to update anything, because you had to update it separately on two different systems. And the number of times we'd forget that we'd only done it on one system and not the other. It was just very annoying. And we needed something usable on mobiles as well, because that was another massive failing of the old website, that it was virtually impossible to use on a mobile, which is not really acceptable in this day and age. And to top it all, after all that, we needed something that we could actually afford, which, you know, is a worry, because we don't have a lot of money, as I'm sure you're aware. Most arts organisations in Britain, especially after the latest round of Arts Council England cuts, which unfortunately we fell victim to, we're not as well off as we would like to be. So what did we end up with? Well, we ended up with a company called Apexio. There's another Holy Grail picture on the left there of, you know, you could see that as the library team worshipping Apexio in the middle of a table. It's not quite like that, because they're not the Holy Grail, not in any way, shape or form, but they are by far the closest we could get to that. So the benefits of Apexio as a company, we were thankful for the fact that it's a company actually run by career archivists, so they knew what we were talking about when we asked for really outlandish things. We looked at quite a lot of systems, and we had various Zoom calls with representatives from those systems, and sometimes we asked them if they could do something in particular, and they just looked at us as if we were completely mad. Apexio didn't, which immediately gave them a tick. The staff were in bed, were prepared to embark on a project. They were a small company, which has its upsides and its downsides, but we were prepared to compromise a bit on some of the things like speed of delivery for people that we could actually talk to real human beings, and not have to keep messaging a help desk, which is really maddening. It's a relatively new company, which is why a lot of people familiar with archives haven't necessarily heard of it, but they do already have quite an impressive list of clients, so that gave us confidence. They've also got excellent data security systems, which is very important. So perfection doesn't exist in any of these systems, but the compromises we had to make with Apexio are far outweighed by the benefits that we got from it. So that's a little bit of background as to why we had to change to a new provider and why we went with the provider we did. So here we go. Here is our new website. Looks far more integrated with the rest of the EFTAS website. Looks like we actually belong to the same organisation, which is a lot less confusing for people than it was before. I'm not going to go into everything on the new website. We've got all of the same things that we had before. Sometimes they're in slightly different places. We have some extra things as well and some more helpful bits and pieces, but I will leave you to explore that for yourselves, because we have to concentrate here on the catalogues and indexes. There are different ways of getting to the catalogues and indexes. I know on the old page, some people liked the fact that the search box was there immediately when you went onto the page, so you didn't have to click on anything else. But that actually presented problems for us, because it meant people kind of dived into it without really knowing what they were doing. And for beginners, that was actually a bit of an issue. So we wanted to make sure that we created a more sort of guided pathway through to get people to search the things that they really wanted to be searching. A bit more annoying for the expert search, I know, but at least people can bookmark pages, so they don't have to have a couple of extra clicks. So you can either go up to catalogues and indexes at the top there, or you can scroll down the page and you've got a box that says catalogues and indexes a bit further down. Then when you click on that, and when you scroll even further down, that's where you'll find the map. So I know a couple of people were slightly panicked that the map had disappeared when they first looked at it. You just need to scroll down. But when you click on the catalogues and indexes heading, this is what you get. So you can see we've got the library catalogue there. We're not going to talk about the library catalogue today because that's actually on a completely different system. That's run by a system called Hore, which is an open source piece of software. Yeah, it's completely separate from the archive catalogue because it serves a very different function. I think previously some people got quite confused with whether they wanted to search the library or the archive. They didn't know what the difference was, and quite often got onto the wrong one. So it does have a little line under it just telling you what you're searching when you go to each one. You've got the archive catalogue separately, then you've got the VWML indexes, so our own song, dance and tune indexes, and then the RAUD indexes, which are separated out. Before, the default was to search for everything at once, and people didn't necessarily want to do that. And it wasn't always clear how to only search the RAUD indexes or something like that. And Steve was actually very clear that he wanted a clearer option for people just to search the RAUD indexes. So that's what we gave him here. If you scroll a bit further down the screen, you've also got the song subject index separated out, and you've got the browsable map as well on this page. If you go right down to the very bottom, this is where you go if you do want to search across the archive catalogues and all of the indexes at once. So you can still do that, but we deliberately didn't want to make that the first thing that people saw because of what the effect that I've described with having that before. So I will talk a little bit about that later. So I've got some general searching tips here, because I know some people up front always want to know things like how you use an asterisk, how you use and, or, and not, how you use inverted commas, and so on. The way it does it is fairly conventional. It's pretty much the same as most other catalogues you'd search. If you do want to get into that and make yourself aware of that before you start playing around, then you'll find this general tips section in the help on the sort of help homepage, which I'll talk a bit more about later. But I just wanted to demonstrate at this point that how you use all of these different bits of search syntax is common across the archive catalogue and all the indexes. So you don't need to learn how to do it differently at all. So I've clicked at this point on the archive catalogues, so I'm not searching the indexes at all at this point. But it is basically the same. You search in the same way, whether you're in the archive catalogue or the indexes. So I'm just keeping it simple by searching just the archive catalogues at the moment. So you can search just very simply by putting, for example, a song title in the text box there. You don't have to bother with any of the other stuff around it if you don't want to. You can just treat it like a Google search box. But you have got various other features you can use. There's a drop down to the right of the search box asking you basically whether you want to search for something as a phrase or as individual words, which could be scattered anywhere around the record, whether next to each other or not. So yeah, have a look at the options available there. You have a line which says within, so you can decide whether you want to search within, for example, the title, or say if you want to search for a song collector, you can change that to collector. If you want a place that something was collected in, then you can change that to place. Basically, it's got an option for all the different fields that you'll find on the catalogue record. It's got a date range. So if you happen to know that you only want examples of, say, a song that was collected between certain dates because you know that somebody made collecting trips between those dates, then you can put a start and finish year or the same year in both. You can also add more fields if you want to. So say if you want to search for a song collected by a particular person, you could then put that in a separate field. So, which is what I've done here, in fact. So I'm searching for the song Bushes and Briars. I'm searching for that together as a phrase appearing in the title, because it's the title of a song. And I'm searching for that song collected by Vaughan Williams. I've put his name in the box, and I've changed the within line to collector. You've also got at the bottom there, you can decide whether you want the results in your list to match, whether you want all of the above fields combined. So essentially you're saying you want results from this, like this line and this line, both of them have to be present. Or you can have results that match in any of the above fields. So so you could say you want, say, if you I mean, you might want to put like 2 song collectors and look for everything that was collected by those people, like that person or that person. So essentially, you're kind of changing whether you're using an and or an or. I didn't explain that very well, but I hope you know what I mean. Then you click on search, and this is what your search results look like. So you will have a list of items in the middle of the screen. Down the left-hand side, you've got various different options. At the top, it just tells you which particular bit of the website you're searching. So we've obviously just searched the archive catalogue here. If you decided that at this point, oh, I haven't got very many results, maybe I'll search the indexes as well. You can then just pick one of those boxes where it says VWML Song Index or Dance and Tune Index, and search across those two. It tells you which collection the results are from. As it happens, we've only got 2 results here, and they're both from the Vaughan Williams collection at the British Library. But you might find you have a whole list of collections there, in which case you could limit it down to, say, a particular one, if that's the one you were interested in. You can also decide if you might not want things that don't have digitized images, so you can knock those out if you wish to. You can change the number of results you see on a page. So if you've got lots of results and you want to be able to scroll through them without having to click next all the time, you can do that there. It will order your results by relevance. I know relevance is sometimes a little bit of a obscure term in database systems like this, because they judge relevance in rather obtuse ways sometimes. But you can change that to things like date order or alphabetical order if that's more helpful to you. What you get up front is just the brief records for each entry. So you can scroll down the list. You can change it to full records. So if you want to see everything that's on a record without having to click on show full record every time, you can do that. It depends how you want to work. But you can also click on open full record for the one you particularly want to view. So I'm going to do that for this one. And this is, I can't show you the whole page at once because you would have to scroll down, but this is like the top half of the page that you get when you do that. So it tells you which collection it's from at the top. This one's got a rather long string because it tells you which sub-collection of sub-collection you would find this particular record in, this particular document. You've got a title, then you've got the digitized image if you've got, if there is a digitized image. With which you can zoom in, you can rotate it should you wish to. Not quite sure why you'd want to look at it upside down, but there we are. You can zoom in, and you can also do full screen, which if you want to look at it properly is the best way. So if I click on full screen, you get something that looks a bit like this. I know some people, we got quite a lot of people emailing and asking why you could no longer right click and download an image. You can in fact do this, but you have to go onto the full screen. So just an aside to bear that in mind. Then you can close full screen. And if you scroll down, this is the rest of the record. So it's got all the information about it here that you might want. The archive reference number, the format, so it's a manuscript, obviously, the repository, so that tells you that the actual paper document is in the British Library, You've got a round number and the collector, which obviously is Vaughan Williams. Now with the round number, which is there, you can see that that's a hyperlink. So if you click on that, it will open up a list of all the songs in the system which have the same round number. So that's a nice way of looking at lots of different versions of the same song. On the top right of the record screen, you've got various options up there. You've got one that says contact us about this item. Now, actually quite a lot of people have been using this and it's quite useful to us. So if you have any problem with an item or you can't get it to display properly, or you find a mistake in the record, which does happen, you can email us by clicking on that and you can tell us or ask us whatever your question or point is, and it will come straight through to the library inbox. You can also print the catalogue entry, you can email it to yourself, and you can add it to saved records, which is quite a useful thing to be able to do if you're looking through a lot of results. If you click on that and you go up to the top of the screen, wherever you happen to be, you'll see in the menu you've got saved items with a little 1 next to it to reflect that you've added 1 record. So when you finish looking through all your results, you can go up there, click on saved items, and you will have a list of all the ones which you decided were relevant or which you wish to go back to and look at more closely. At the moment, I regret to say it's not the case that you can sort of leave the system, shut it down and come back the next day and find that your list is still there. They don't have that facility at the moment. I know a lot of people find that really useful. I find that really useful. It may be something that they do include in the system in the future, but you can't do that for now. So it all has to be within the same session. Sorry. Okay, so that's a whiz through how you do a fairly basic, straightforward search on the archive catalogue. I know I'm galloping through this, but there is quite a lot to get through, so I apologise for the speed. You can also browse the collections. I know initially we had a couple of people who thought that we'd remove this page because it's in a slightly unobvious place. Basically, if you go to the search page and you scroll down, you'll find this underneath the search box. So we've got a list of all the archive collections that we have on the system here, and you can scroll through them and click on whichever one you'd like to browse. So it's just a different way of getting at the same documents. So, for example, if I click on the Butterworth collection, you get this screen, which gives you, it gives you usually a biography of the person whose collection it is. And then if you scroll down, some kind of indication of how the collection came to us, where it came from, and then what repository it's in. So this is one of our collections that we actually own. And then you get a full table of contents underneath. And if you look at the little plus sign on the left-hand side of every one of those headings, you can click on that and it'll open up a tree underneath it, which allows you to browse what's in that particular bit of the collection. So if I click on the one that I've put a red square around there, then these are all the sub-records under that particular bit of the collection. So you can scroll through that and then just click on details for the one you want to look at in more detail. Yeah, and that will just take you to what I showed you before in the search results. It's just a different way of getting to it. And if you don't really know what's there in the collection, then obviously it's nice to be able to just scroll through that and have a look at a few things that take your fancy. Okay, so I'm just going to say a few words about the global search now. This is the way of searching across the archive catalogues, our indexes and the RAUD indexes all at once. So to recap, you find this at the bottom of the catalogues and indexes homepage. So we've got it all separated out, but you scroll down and then you've got the global search at the bottom. This is possibly the way that a lot of people who are very used to searching, who use our site a lot, prefer to do things. I would, I would advise people who don't really know what they're doing initially to use this with a lot of caution, because it can produce a lot of extraneous results which are not really what you're looking for. And then if you don't understand what you've got in the list, it's actually quite confusing. But okay, so imagine that I've written some words in that box. I have searching for lands. So I've got a list of all the instances of that song coming up across our catalogue, across our archive catalogue, and across the indexes. Now, when you're in this global search, across the top of the results list, you've got this bar. So you've got different tabs. It defaults to the tab on the left, which is all results. So this list is showing you everything from all of the different indexes and the archive catalogue. If you want to just look at those which come up in actual archive records for particular items, particular sort of physical items, then you can click on archive records. If you want just the index entries, then click on index entries. You may wish to sort of toggle back and forth between those as a way of sort of finding out what kind of records there are for the particular thing you've searched for. Oops, I was just going to say, again, you've got the limit options down the left-hand side. I should have said that on the old system, you had to do all your limiting up front, which is one of the big changes, really. But this is how the Apexio system tends to do it. We did ask them to put some of the limit options up front, so you could do that sort of before you click search on your search, but most of them are after you've got the results list. It works just as well. It's just a slightly different way of doing it. So the limit options you've got here, we've got some slightly different ones to what we saw on the archive catalogue results list. What you see there depends on what's pertinent to the actual results that you get. So it's not always the same. So you've got which collections the results come from at the top. You've got, well, skip over level, but formats. So you've got manuscripts, sound recordings, typescripts, printed items, and so on. Type of song. And then, yeah, the index entries, it'll tell you how many come from each one of the different indexes. Yeah, but everything else really works the same. So you look at the list in the same way, you open a full record in the same way that you did. And yeah, all the stuff around it works exactly the same. But that is how you search across many more data sets. If we go back to the global search, which appears, as I said, at the bottom of the catalogues and indexes screen, I just want to point out to you that you have an advanced search as well. So if you want to break down your fields to search for, a title, as well as a collector, as well as a place, or whatever other things you want, it does that exactly the same as it did when I showed you in the archive catalogue. So yeah, and you've got add more fields, so you can add as many fields as you want to, actually. You're not limited. You can be as complex or as straightforward as you like. And you've got the date ranges and so on in the same way. Now you have got, sorry, my screen looks a little bit weird because I've got this bar at the top that says this meeting is being recorded, which is kind of obscuring some of the menus. So I'm having to remember what's under it, but that's fine. Yes. You've got, in the same line as the advanced search, that's right, search within, which I haven't covered yet. This is what you use if you want to search for a result within a particular collection. So you really have to understand what you're doing to do this. But basically, the collection code or the sub-collection code or whatever is the little code you see on the left-hand side of the Browse Archives list. So if you know what that is, this is a very quick way of searching for things which appear within a certain collection. So say, as in this example, I want to know what there is, or, whether a particular song or a particular dance or whatever appears within the Devon Heritage Centre collection, or for the Baring Gould collection, which is SBG. They're usually fairly guessable. So I could put that particular archive collection code in the reference number box along there, and then put text underneath. So you're then searching for results that appear within that collection. So yeah, if you use the same collection a lot, or you're doing a fairly deep study of one collection, then that's a really useful thing to know. Okay, moving on, the map. Now this works in very much the same way as it did on the old site. So if you ever used the map on the old site, this is fairly familiar. It just looks a bit different. Each of those blue circles relates to a song or a tune that's been collected in that place on the map. You can zoom in or out. It's a lot easier to move around than it was on the old site. So I've zoomed right in and I've picked a particular place. So I've gone to this village in Essex, and I've clicked on the blue dot, and it tells me that this place is related to 3 records. If you click on the hyperlink on 3 records, then it will take you to those 3 records. And it's fairly straightforward. That's basically what it does. And you can see that we've got the name of the village there on the record. Yes, was I going to say anything else about the map? Possibly, I might come back to that later. But yeah, that's basically how it works. Okay, I am going to move on to the folk song subject index in this next stop in this whistle stop tour of the new website. Now, the folk song subject index allows you to search for a song about or relating to a particular subject. I must say up front, this is a work in progress. It's only a sort of snapshot of what is out there in the world of songs at the moment, basically because obviously there are tens of thousands of songs in the ROUD index, and in order to subject index all of those songs, it would take a far more enormous team than we have at our dispensation in VWML. And we've only so far managed to index a few over 1,000 songs. Not quite sure what the current total is. So yeah, it's very much incomplete, but there's enough in there now that it is actually a really useful tool. And we know that certainly particular types of people use it quite a lot. We get a lot of people coming into the library, artists in particular, who want to know what songs there are, say, on something like Women in Disguise or something like that. And this is always a really good place to send them first, because then even if it doesn't give them every song that exists in the ROUD index, it will give them a good start, and then they can go from there. So yeah, we actually use it as staff quite often as well if we're doing inquiries for people. So the subject terms which appear in the thesaurus in the subject index are based on a single version of the song denoted by ROUD number. And the subject terms are related to the content of the song rather than its purpose. So you wouldn't go here looking for herring gutting songs that will be sung, while doing a particular type of work. You would go for songs which are about fishing or about mining, or that sort of thing. I'm just going to, there's quite a lot of steps to searching this, so apologies if I take rather long over it, but it's quite hard to explain. So yeah, so this is what the page looks like when you click on song subject index. And you've got the thesaurus displayed on the left-hand side, and then the search boxes in the middle. In order to find whether there is a term on the in the thesaurus for the thing you want to search for, you need to write it in the box at the top of the thesaurus on the left, rather than jumping straight in and searching things in the box in the middle of the page. That's an important thing to remember. So you can see that I'm looking for songs about horses, and I put horses in there. You will then get all of the terms in the thesaurus which relate in some way to horses. You may not know what terms there are, so you may think, oh, hang on, there's a term specifically for black horses, which is done. For some reason, I only want songs about black horses, not grey horses or chestnut ones or whatever else. Just pretend. If you want to add that term to your search, you have to click on the plus that I've circled in red next to it, and that will add it across into the search, into the search page section. Now, this might happen, which didn't happen on the old system. The difference here is that on the old system, you would only get listed on the front end of the index the terms which had actually been used. Apexio aren't able to do that for whatever reason. So what you get is the entire thesaurus as it's been formulated. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every term you see has yet been assigned to a song by an indexer. So unfortunately, nobody has yet used the term black horses. Yeah, unfortunately, this poor black horse on the right does not feature in any songs yet, but maybe he will one day. So I'm going to go back and say, okay, so what are the broader terms of that? And I've clicked on broader terms, which will show you the fact that black horses sits in a tree which has horses as the next term up. And that in turn sits under mammals, which sits under animals, and so on to people and living organisms, which is the widest you can possibly get. Instead, I'm going to go broader rather than narrower. You will see that you can always look at broader terms. You can look at narrower terms too, and you can look at related terms. So related terms are anything which isn't horses, but it is things which are sort of adjacent to that, like horse riding or farm animals, so on. So I've decided I want to search for all horses, regardless of colour, and I've put that in my search. You might think at this point, oh, hang on, maybe donkeys would be relevant too. So you can add an extra line, just as you could in the archive search. So I've decided I'm going to search for either horses or donkeys here. You can search, at this point, rather, you can, I'm sorry, yeah, so I've added donkeys. You've got options under the boxes. You can decide that you want to include all of the narrower terms. So you're not just picking up horses, but you're picking up all the different terms which fall under horses, like, you know, race horses, cart horses, mares, stallions, all of those things. You can select that you want to pick up low weight terms as well. A low weight term is when, sorry, my cat has now decided that she's going to come and say hello to everybody. I thought this might happen. Apologies, she's now, yeah, that's a bit rude. Yes, a low weight term is when something has been, a term has been assigned to a particular song, but it doesn't really appear very importantly in that song. It's mentioned, but it's not really about that. So you can decide whether you want to pick those up or not. And again, you've got that, whether you want results that are in all of the above fields or just in any of them. And then when you click search, this is your list of things that come up. These are all the songs which are indexed with horses or donkeys. So open full record. Oh, sorry, yeah, you've got a different set of limit options down the left-hand side. So you've got particular things like characters. So if you're a singer, say, and you want to search for only songs which have a female voice, if you're a female singer, you can do that here, which is quite useful. And it's got things like where it was printed and that sort of thing. But then if you open the full record, you get this. which gives you the round number of it, which again you can click on to get all the other songs, or all the songs which fall under that round number, so all the variants. You've got a synopsis of the song, so what happens in it. You've got the source that the indexer used to find this information, and then you've got your subject terms down there. So this has come up because we've got a related term, which was horse fairs, and then you've got your low weight terms. You might think, oh, actually, I'm particularly interested in what other songs there are that have that term. Maybe I'll see what songs there are that are specifically about mares. So this is all, just pretending I'm a searcher that has some very particular interest. You could then click on any of those terms and find all the songs that use that term. So you can sort of keep going and further down rabbit holes doing this. And this is our list of songs which are about mares or indexed under a mare. And you can tell that I decided it was time that we had an animal picture at this point. So I have put a little dun mare on the right hand side. And the fact that I finally found the song that I'm really looking for. So yeah, that is how the subject index works. We are still having to tweak quite a lot on the subject index, I will say. It's been the most complicated to get right, and it's still not quite right. We are planning to have a meeting to thrash out some of this with Apexio. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more how we want it. But if you come across any problems with it, then do let us know. But yeah, it's quite a complicated thing to get right. Just going to show you briefly that we've got a heading on the website which says digitized resources as well. This is the same as on the old website up there. And this is where you'll find the historical dance and tune books. If you want to browse those, you'll also find Sharp's Appalachian diaries there and his photos of singers and dancers. So if you we've clicked on tune books, and then this is all the tune books that we have that we can look at more closely. You can select any of those and it will give you the contents of that book. So you can keep drilling down until you get, a specific page. And then you can go backwards and forwards with previous and next and browse all your way through each volume. So that is how that works. Yeah. You may well be confused. We're often confused because this is complicated stuff a lot of the time. If you do need help, you can obviously contact us anytime through any one of the ways that one can do that. But we do have much better help pages now on this. I'm sure we'll probably tweak the help pages when we realise, that we need to explain things in slightly different ways and so on. Yeah, so when you're searching, if you see this little question mark, you can click on that at any time. And that will take you it will open in a new window so you don't lose what you're searching. It'll go to the help page for whichever particular bit of the system you're on. So this is the archives catalogue help. If you go up to the catalogues and indexes menu, you've got the sub menu which opens there. If you go along to the right hand side, you'll see you've got help there, and you've got all of the different sections of the search and a specific help page for that section. There's a general help at the top as well, which gives you a little bit of blurb about each section and what it is. And then you can click on any one of those red rectangles to get to an in-depth help for that section, like the one you can see on the right hand side. Okay, so if the help section doesn't do what you want, you can of course email us. We have a generic library email address, which goes to an inbox that we all check, which you can use, or you can email me specifically. Most of the time with EFDAS email addresses, it's firstname@efdas.org. There are a few exceptions if there's more than one of that name in the organisation, but that's basically what it usually is. Just a plug as well for our Instagram. If you don't follow us on Instagram, that is a place where we keep people up to date with the things that we're doing, with events that are coming up, just with interesting things that we find in our day-to-day work. when we have new books, new journal issues, and that sort of thing, we post them there. And yeah, we try to show a little bit of what we do Monday to Friday, which I think some people don't realize all the things we do. So we try and give a snapshot of that there. Yeah, to give you a bit of insight. But yeah, that's the end of my whiz through how you use our new website. I hope you found that vaguely helpful. I can't possibly in an hour or so cover everything that you might want to know. So yeah, as Martin and Sian said, we'll now have time where you can ask the questions that you've been burning to ask. I don't know how much has been put in the chat because I can't see the chat, so maybe there are some questions there as well. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. I hope you've been listening and are not there anymore, but I can't see, so I don't know. So,
well, thank you. Thank you so much, Tiffany. That was, somebody's unmuted with lots of noise. If it's you, would you kindly mute? Thank you. Right, I continue saying thank you, Tiffany. That was really a wonderful explanation of some of the things that we'll be able to do. I shall, of course, look to Martin when there are difficult things that I want to do, but that's absolutely terrific. Thank you for the talk, but also thank you for all the work, you and your colleagues at VWML, for the work that you've done to put this available for people, just so important. So thank you.
Yeah. It's been a long process, a really long process.
But so appreciated. So now we've got a few questions in the chat, which I think I'll address first of all. And then if you're thinking about a question you want to put to Tiffany, you can think about raising your hand now. So from Sue Allen, there was a question about spellings. So for instance, the word Westmoreland and without an E in the middle, and then Westmoreland with an E in the middle. The two terms are used side by side. Would the search be able to find both?
I'm not 100% sure whether I don't think with something that isn't a normal word like that, it would automatically pick up variant spellings. I think it may do if it's a word that often has variant spellings, like, you know, British and American spellings. But what you can do is to put, if you go to the general searching tips, it's got an example in there where you can put a question mark in the middle of a word. So there could or couldn't be, or there might or might not be a letter at that point. So you can break the word up by putting a question mark in the middle.
That might work, yeah.
If you don't remember how to do that, you could just put in both spellings and you could put one or the other. You can actually write like and or in the middle of a search string. So you could put Westmoreland or Westmore land, which would automatically pick up one or the other anyway, if you want to make sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And going on from that, Sue had asked about singular and plural iterations of the word.
Yeah, again, I'm not actually sure whether it picks those up automatically, but you can put an asterisk at the end, and that will pick up. So say if you're searching for, I can never think of a really good example whenever I'm doing things like this, but say if you're looking for dance or dancing or dancers, for example, if you put DANC and then put an asterisk, so that's the root of a word, which might have any one of those endings, and that would pick up any combination of letters after the asterisk. So like including a plural if there was a plural of a singular.
Okay, thank you. Caroline asked about using your own search terms rather than the predetermined ones in the thesaurus, but I think Martin Nail has answered that a bit further down, but you might have something to add.
Yeah, it's a controlled vocabulary, so so you have to, that's why you can't just write words in sort of free text. You have to select from the thesaurus on the left. So yes, you have to use the term in the thesaurus because it's a way of grouping together, you know, grouping together various different synonyms that there might be under one approved term, so that you don't have to type in, for example, well, again, can't think of an example, but yeah, you don't have to type in the different synonyms for a particular term. You just find the one approved term for that thing.
I see, yes. Right, the next one was Liz asking about whether you can search for a tune family rather than the title of the tune. So she cites Star of the County Down, which is a family of tunes. How could you search for that? She actually says, if I were to enter Star of the County Down, tune family, would it bring up songs with different lyrics but a similar tune?
I'm going to have to get my head. Are you talking about specifically tunes rather than songs, or?
I think she is, but maybe Liz would like to.
Okay, basically a song like Leaves of Life or Crooked Jack, they all use the Star of the County Down tune. And sometimes you don't want to sing the lyrics. There might be something in the song that you don't like, but there's another song that has lyrics that you would enjoy more. And
Right.
I tend to hear, when I hear a song, I'll hear all the variants I know running around in my head. So I was
Yeah.
curious to see if
So it's if you're starting your starting point is the tune rather than the words. So
yeah.
yeah. No, not really. I don't think so.
Okay.
I haven't really thought about that before, but
Sort of like Cantometrics,
well,
but
it's like, I mean, a tune that you might sing to a folk song doesn't have the tune itself doesn't have a name. I think
yeah.
it's
But with a computer, you think you could sort of be able to analyze tunes so that you could parse them that way.
no, it doesn't do that. I don't think I've ever come across a catalogue that can do that. I mean, I'm sure it would be possible to do, but it would be a whole other layer of customization that certainly Apexio, I would imagine, have never considered that would be a thing that someone would want to do, to be honest. That would be a pretty advanced way of using an archive search, I think. I mean, it's a nice idea. I would love it if it were possible. But
And a further question, any chance of getting a player so that you could, for those of us who don't sight read, it would be so
yeah,
nice.
I mean, yes, there are transcriptions for some of them, but not all of them. It's there were problems with the tune transcriptions in the old system. We could not untangle the sort of technical issues that there were with it. It got very complicated, which is why we haven't added any more yet. But there are some that do have transcriptions, and it's something that we would love to pick up again. So yes, sometimes is the answer.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
The next question in the chat, which I think is related to Liz's point, and I'll read it out. Will it ever be possible to support the manuscript images with audio files? And Jane says we have quite a few of these, but we've had to post them on Focopedia.
Yes, well, that is kind of the same answer, really.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have that for some, but it would be lovely to expand that.
Absolutely. Good.
Yeah.
Conrad, you have your hand raised. Would you like to unmute?
That's it.
Okay, you can go with your question, please. Conrad, we're ready for your question now.
Is the microphone maybe not working?
It's possible. Conrad, perhaps put your question in the chat. If we have time, then we'll address it. So that wouldn't be a problem, I think. So anybody else who has oh, sorry. Yes, you're allowed to raise your hand.
What about transcriptions of texts of songs?
Yeah, we do have that in some cases, actually. Yeah, not for everything, but at the bottom, where is it? At the bottom of the full screen image of like the full screen image of the, the digitized image of the page of whatever it is. Sometimes there's a little thing that says transcript.
Yep.
It's not very obvious. I think it was even less obvious when they first set it up, and we asked them to make it more obvious, and it's still not very obvious, but it is there for some of them.
So are you yet ready for more transcriptions? And if so, what format do you want them in?
Okay. Yes, probably. And I'd have to, I'm not sure about the format. I might have to ask them that, but we can have a conversation about it. If you want to drop me an email to remind me, I'll look into it. Yeah.
Okay. Another question is in the chat from Sheila. It says, is there a different system for listening to recordings of songs?
It depends. I mean, we have some recordings on the archive catalogue, yeah. And you can search for, you can isolate in the limit options whether you want recordings, if recordings appear in the search list. So you will find some that have a kind of megaphone symbol next to them, which indicate that there's a recording attached. And yes, you can play those. So it's on the same system, but we don't necessarily have a recording of everything, obviously.
Okay. Well, in that case, I think we've come to the end of the meeting. I shall again say thank you so much. Yes, there are lots of virtual claps going on. That was so valuable and so interesting. Don't forget, because I know I didn't absorb everything that I wanted to, the video will be on the Traditional Song Forum YouTube channel, so you can watch it and hover your finger over the pause button while you get to grips with some of the complications.
And do feel free to email me if if I say anything which when you listen back you think, what is she talking about? Because I know there were bits when I tripped over loads of things and didn't know what I was talking about sometimes. So do feel free to email me and ask me to explain things in more detail, or if there's anything that you come across that you think of. If there's anything that doesn't work as well, because it's very difficult getting a system this complicated right, and we know that there are still some bugs out there. For example, for some reason, there are quite a lot of images which just never seem to appear after we supposedly uploaded all the images, and we've gradually been trying to work out what those are, and we're now going through and trying to upload them all. So if you find something that's not there or not working as it should, please do let us know, because it may be that we haven't realized, because we can't necessarily test everything all of the time because it's enormous. So yeah, anything at all, really, just drop us an email, or even phone us as well.
Well, thank you for giving up your Sunday afternoon and for having prepared this excellent talk. And it's lovely for everybody to have met you. I think that's another really important thing, isn't it? And know that we'd all be welcome when we come visit. So I would recommend it. It's just a lovely space, isn't it? So that's great. So we'll look forward to seeing you all on the 10th of November if you're able to make it. And apart from that, thank you for coming. Is there anything I've forgotten, Martin?
No, you've done an excellent job. Thank you for stepping in at very short notice.
And well, it's great to see you all. So see you next time. And Tiffany, that was terrific. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye then.